He left the cubs alone. Now they're parading like TROPS Part 1. The assignment Commander Park. Donahue stood at the window of his office and watched the stars. He was 52 years old. His hair was gray. His face was hard like stone. He had fought in 3 wars and lost many friends. Now he commanded Space Station Annual 7, a place at the edge of known space where humans and aliens tried to work together. He did not like this job. He was a soldier, not a diplomat. But orders were orders. The door opened behind him. Lieutenant Kim Yuna walked in. She was young and smart, with kind eyes that Park sometimes found annoying. She was too soft for military life, he thought. But she was good at her job. "Commander," she said, "the transport ship has arrived. The passengers are waiting." Park turned around. "What passengers?" Yuna looked at her tablet. 12 Valari children, sir, orphans. Their transport ship broke down and needs repairs. They will stay here for 72 hours. Park felt his stomach turn. Children. He did not know how to deal with children. He had never married. He had no family. His life was the military. Nothing else. "Why here?" he asked. "We are the closest station, sir." Park walked past her toward the door. "Fine. Show me." They walked through the long metal corridors of the station. Soldiers saluted as Park passed. He did not smile at any of them. He never smiled. When they reached the docking bay, Park saw them for the first time. 12 small creatures stood in a group near their ship. They looked like cats that walked on 2 legs. Their fur was different colors. Some were gray, some were orange, some were white with spots. They had large eyes that looked wet and scared. Their ears were flat against their heads, that an old Valari female stood with them. She was bent with age, and her fur was silver. She walked slowly toward Park and bowed. "I am Grandmother Lyra," she said. Her voice was soft and tired. "Thank you for helping us, Commander." Park nodded but did not bow back. "Your ship will be fixed in 3 days. Until then, you will stay in the guest quarters." Grandmother Lyra looked at the children behind her. They had not moved. They were staring at the human soldiers with wide, frightened eyes. "Commander," she said quietly, "these children have seen terrible things. The Krath Dominion destroyed our world. They watched their parents die. Please, I ask you, keep them away from anything military. They are too soft for war. They must never see violence again." Park looked at the children. One small female, white with gray spots, was shaking so hard he could see it from where he stood. A tiny male with orange fur was hiding behind a bigger child. None of them made any sound. "Lieutenant Yuna will take care of them," Park said. "I have work to do." He turned and walked away. Behind him, he heard Grandmother Lyra sigh. The next 2 days were quiet. Park stayed in his command center and watched reports. He checked weapon systems. He read messages from headquarters. He did not think about the children, but sometimes, late at night, he looked at the security cameras. He told himself he was checking for problems. He told himself it was just routine. But his eyes always found the same room. The guest quarters where the Valari children slept. They did not play. They did not laugh. They sat together in corners and stared at nothing. Sometimes one would cry, and the others would put their small arms around them. Grandmother Lyra tried to read them stories, but they did not listen. They were broken, Park thought, like soldiers who had seen too much war. On the 3rd day, something changed. The transport ship needed more repairs. Parts had to come from another system. The 72 hours became 2 weeks. Maybe more. Park felt tired when he heard the news. 2 weeks with children on his station. 2 weeks of walking carefully and watching his words. He was not built for this. He went to his office and sat down. His computer showed the security cameras again. Without thinking, he looked at the guest quarters. The children were not there. Park sat up straight. He checked other cameras. The mess hall was empty. The medical bay was empty. Where were they? Then he found them. They were standing at a window on deck 7. All 12 of them, pressed against the glass, their ears pointed forward. Their eyes were not scared anymore. They were wide with something else. Something Park had not seen in them before. He switched to the outside camera to see what they were looking at. Below them, in the training yard, his Marines were drilling. 50 soldiers in perfect lines, moving as one. They marched forward, turned left, turned right, stopped, started again. Their boots hit the ground at the same time. Their voices called out together. Park watched the children watch the soldiers. Their small mouths were open. The tiny orange male, the one who always hid, was standing at the very front of the group. His paws were pressed flat against the window. One female stood apart from the others. She was the oldest, Park remembered. Her name was Sori. She had gray fur and serious eyes. She was 14 in human years. She had not spoken one word since arriving. Now she was staring at the Marines with an expression Park knew well. He had seen it on the faces of young recruits. He had seen it in the mirror long ago, when he was a boy watching soldiers parade through his hometown. It was the look of someone who had found something they wanted, something they needed. The drilling ended. The Marines broke formation and walked away. But the children did not move. They stayed at the window for a long time, even after there was nothing left to see. That night, Park checked the cameras again. The children were in their quarters. But they were not sitting in corners anymore. They were standing in a line. Sori stood at the front, her back straight, her chin up. She said something to the others. They tried to copy her. Their line was crooked. Their movements were clumsy. The small orange male fell over and the others helped him up. But they kept trying. Park watched them until midnight. Then he turned off his computer and went to bed. But he could not sleep. Something had changed on his station. Something small had woken up in those broken children. And for the first time in many years, Commander Park Do-yoon felt something he had forgotten. He felt curious. He left the cubs alone. Now they're parading like TROPS Part 2. The spark 5 days passed. The transport ship was still broken. New parts were coming, but slowly. The Valari children stayed on station. HNEUL-7. Lieutenant Yuna came to Park's office every morning with a report. She told him what the children ate. She told him how they slept. She told him they were getting better. "They are playing now," she said on the 5th day. Her eyes were bright with happiness. "Yesterday, they laughed." "I heard them laugh, Commander." Park nodded but said nothing. He knew why they were laughing. He had seen them on the cameras. Every day, the children went to the window on deck 7. Every day, they watched the Marines train. And every night, they practiced in their quarters. They marched in crooked lines. They tried to turn at the same time. They fell down and got up again. They were playing soldier. Park thought it was strange. The Lari were known across the galaxy as peaceful creatures. They made art. They sang songs. They never fought. Their world had no army, which is why the Krath destroyed them so easily. But these children wanted to march like humans. They wanted to stand straight like humans. They wanted to move together like humans. On the 6th day, something new happened. Park was walking through the station when he saw her. Sori, the oldest cub, was standing alone near the training yard door. She was watching Sergeant Beek Jiwoo teach a class of new soldiers. Sergeant Beek was a small woman with short black hair and a loud voice. She was famous on the station for being very strict. New soldiers feared her. Old soldiers respected her. Park liked her because she never made excuses and never complained. Sori watched Beek for a long time. Then, when Beak gave her class a break, the young Valari walked forward. Park stopped walking. He watched from a distance. Sori approached Beak slowly. Her ears were down, which meant she was nervous. But she did not run away. "Excuse me," Sori said. Her voice was quiet, and her common language was not perfect. "I have question." Beak looked down at the small alien child. Her face was hard, but her eyes were not unkind. "What question?" Beak asked. Sori pointed at the training yard. "Why do you walk together like that?" "All same time. All same way." Beak was quiet for a moment. Then she bent down so her face was level with Sori's. "Do you know what a team is?" Beak asked. Sori nodded. "Group of people." "A team is more than that," Beak said. "A team is people who trust each other. People who move together, think together, fight together. When we march in formation, we learn to feel each other. We learn to be one thing instead of many things." Sori's ears came forward. She was listening very carefully. "Alone, I am weak," Beak continued. "I am small. I am just one person. But when I stand with my team, I am strong. We protect each other. We never leave anyone behind." Sori's eyes were wet. "Never?" "Never," Beak said firmly. "That is our rule. No matter what happens, no matter how scared we are, we stay together." Sori looked at the ground for a long moment. Then she looked up again. "Thank you," she said. And she walked away. Park watched her go. He saw her return to the other children who were waiting near the corridor. She talked to them in their own language. They listened with wide eyes. That night, Park checked the cameras as usual. The children were having a meeting. They sat in a circle on the floor, and Sori stood in the middle. She was talking, and the others were nodding. Park wished he could hear what she was saying. The small orange male raised his hand. His name was Taiho. He was the youngest and the smallest. Park had noticed that the other cubs sometimes pushed him away. He was weak, and weak things did not last long in the universe. Taiho asked a question. Sori answered him. Then she did something that surprised Park. She reached out and put her paw on Taiho's head. She said something that made the small cub stand up straighter. She said something that made his eyes shine. Later, Park learned what she had said. "The humans told me that size does not matter. Only heart matters." The next morning, Park was in his office when his door opened without warning. He looked up, ready to be angry. 12 Alari children stood in his doorway. They were arranged in 2 lines, 6 in front and 6 behind. Their backs were straight. Their chins were up. Their ears pointed forward. Sori stood at the front. She took 1 step into the office and saluted. It was not a perfect salute. Her paw was in the wrong position, but it was clearly a salute. "Commander Park," she said. Her voice did not shake. "We want to ask you something." Park stood up slowly. "What do you want?" "We want you to teach us," Sori said. "We want to stop being afraid. We want to be strong like your soldiers." Behind her, 11 small voices spoke together. "Please, sir." Park stared at them for a long moment. These small creatures, these broken children from a destroyed world, were asking him to train them. A man who had never taught anyone. A man who did not know how to be soft or kind. "No," he said. Sori did not move. "Why? You are children. You are Valari. Your people do not fight. Our people are dead," Sori said quietly. "Because we did not know how to fight. Because we did not know how to be strong." The room was very silent. "Please," Sori said again. "We are tired of being scared. We are tired of hiding. Teach us to stand together. Teach us to be brave." Park looked at their faces. He saw the fear they were trying to hide. He saw the hope they were afraid to feel. He saw 12 small lives that had been broken by war, asking him to help them become whole again. "No," he said again. "Go back to your quarters." The cubs' ears went flat. But they did not cry. They did not beg. Story nodded once, turned around, and led them out of the office. Park sat down heavily in his chair. He told himself he had made the right choice. They were children. Teaching them military things would only hurt them more. But that night, he checked the cameras again. The cubs were in the cargo bay, not their quarters. They had found old broom handles somewhere. They were using them as pretend rifles. Story was teaching them to march. Her voice was tired but strong. Left, right, together. They practiced until they could not stand anymore. Then they fell asleep on the floor, curled around each other like a pile of small, furry soldiers. And in his office, Commander Park watched them until morning. He left the cubs alone. Now they're parading like TROPS Part 3. The training 2 weeks became 3 weeks. Then 4 weeks. The transport ship was still not fixed. Parts were lost. More parts were ordered. Nobody knew when it would be ready. Grandmother Lyra came to Park's office on the 15th day. She was angry. "You must stop them," she said. Her old voice was shaking. "I see what they are doing. They wake at dawn. They run. They practice marching. They are trying to be soldiers." Park looked at her. "I told them no. I refused to teach them. But they are teaching themselves. They watch your soldiers every day. They copy everything." Grandmother Lyra's eyes were full of tears. "These are children. My children. The last children of our world. They should be painting and singing and playing, not marching like troops." Park was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Have you looked at them? Really looked at them?" "What do you mean?" "When they came here, they did not speak. They did not eat. They shook with fear when anyone looked at them." Park stood up and walked to his window. "Now they stand straight. They look people in the eyes. They are not afraid anymore." Grandmother Lyra wiped her tears. "But this is not the Valari way." "The Valari way did not save your planet," Park said. His voice was not cruel, just honest. "I am not saying you should become warriors. But maybe there's something in between. Something that lets you keep your heart and find your strength." Grandmother Lyra did not answer. She just walked out of the office. That afternoon, Park made a decision. He did not know if it was right, but he could not watch anymore. He could not sit in his office while those children tried to learn alone. He went to the cargo bay, where the cubs practiced every day. They were in the middle of their march when he walked in. They stopped immediately, their eyes wide. "Your formation is wrong," Park said. "Your lines are crooked. Your steps are not even." Story stepped forward. "We are trying, sir. We do not have a teacher." Park looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at the others. Taiho, the smallest, was standing at the back. His legs were shaking from tiredness, but he had not sat down. "I will not teach you to fight," Park said slowly. "You are children. You are not soldiers. But I will teach you discipline. I will teach you to stand together. I will teach you to be strong without being violent. Do you understand?" 12 heads nodded at once. "Good," Park said. "Now, everyone stand in one line. Tallest on the left, shortest on the right." The cubs scrambled to follow his order. It was messy. They bumped into each other. But in less than a minute, they were standing in a proper line. Park walked along the line, looking at each of them. He stopped in front of Taiho. "You," he said. "What is your name?" "Taiho, sir." The small cub's voice was barely a whisper. "You are the smallest. Do you think that makes you the weakest?" Taiho looked at the ground. "Yes, sir." Park bent down until his face was level with Taiho's. In human history, there was a country called Korea. It was a small country between two big countries. Everyone thought Korea was weak. Everyone thought it would be destroyed. But Korea survived for thousands of years. Do you know why? Taiho shook his head. Because the people never gave up. Because they fought with their hearts, not just their hands. Being small is not being weak. Remember that. Taiho's ears came forward. His eyes grew bright. Yes, sir. Park stood up. Now, everyone, attention. He showed them how to stand at attention. Back straight. Chin up. Eyes forward. Arms at the sides. He walked along the line and corrected every mistake. He was not gentle, but he was not cruel. Good, he said when they got it right. Now, forward march. The training began. Every morning at dawn, the Cubs met Commander Park in the training yard. He taught them to march in formation. He taught them to turn left and right at the same time. He taught them to respond when he called out orders. Yes, sir. They learned to shout together. Their small voices echoed off the metal walls. Lieutenant Yuna joined the training after the first week. She taught them first aid. She showed them how to bandage wounds and help someone who was hurt. She taught them emergency signals and what to do if there was a fire or a hull breach. Sergeant Beak came too. She was strict with them, just like she was with her own soldiers. But at the end of each session, she would smile and tell them they did well. You Cubs are faster learners than my recruits, she said one day. Must be all that Valari grace. The Cubs were proud. They worked harder. At night, Yuna and Beak visited the Cubs' quarters. They taught them human songs. They told them stories about Earth, about mountains and oceans and cities full of lights. They taught them the Marine motto, no one left behind. The Cubs loved that motto. They repeated it every night before sleep. No one left behind. No one left behind. Grandmother Lyra watched all of this with worried eyes. But slowly, her worry turned to wonder. The children were changing. They were not becoming violent or hard. They were becoming confident. They were becoming brave. One evening, she found Taiho sitting alone, looking at the stars through a window. Little one, she said, what are you thinking? Taiho turned to her. His eyes were calm, not scared. I am thinking about home, he said. About what happened. Before, when I thought about it, I wanted to hide. I wanted to disappear. He paused. Now, when I think about it, I feel something different. What do you feel? I feel like I want to make sure it never happens again. Not to us. Not to anyone. Taiho looked back at the stars. Commander Park says we cannot change the past, but we can change the future. We can become strong enough to protect others. Grandmother Lyra felt tears on her face. She sat down next to Taiho and put her arm around him. You have grown so much, she whispered. We all have, Taiho said, because the humans showed us how. 6 weeks after the Cubs arrived, Commander Park stood at his window and watched them practice in the training yard below. They moved as one. Their lines were perfect. Their voices were strong. He felt something warm in his chest. He did not have a name for it. Then the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed everywhere. A voice came over the speakers. Alert, alert. Craft raiders detected in system. All personnel to battle stations. Park's blood went cold. The Krath, the same enemy who had destroyed the Cubs' homeworld. They were here. He left the Cubs alone now. They're parading like T-Ropes Part 4. The storm the station shook as the first Krath missiles hit the outer shields. Lights flickered. Alarms screamed. People ran through the corridors, shouting orders and grabbing weapons. Commander Park was in the command center, watching the battle on the big screen. 3 Krath warships had come out of nowhere. They were smaller than human battleships, but they were fast and deadly. The station's defenses were holding. but not for long. "Commander," said a young officer, "they are launching boarding pods. They want to take the station, not destroy it." Park's jaw tightened. A space battle was bad, but a boarding action was worse. It meant fighting in the corridors. It meant hand-to-hand combat. It meant chaos. "All Marines to defensive positions," Park ordered. "Begin evacuation of non-combat personnel to escape pods on Deck 12. He thought about the Cubs. They were supposed to be in the training yard when the attack started. Lieutenant Una was with them. She would get them to safety. But deep in his heart, Park felt fear. Real fear. Something he had not felt in many years. The next 30 minutes were madness. Krath soldiers breached the station in 3 places. Fighting broke out on decks 4, 7, and 9. Park directed his forces from the command center, but his mind kept going to the Cubs. "Lieutenant Una, report," he said into his communicator. "What is your status?" "Static." Then Una's voice, shaking but clear. "Commander, we have a problem. The Cubs and I were heading to Deck 12 when the Krath breached near us. We got separated from the Marine escort. Grandmother Lyra is hurt. She fell when the explosion happened." Park's heart stopped. "Where are you?" "Deck 8, Section 4. The Krath are between us and the evacuation point. I count at least 6 enemy soldiers. Stay hidden. I am sending help." "Commander, there is no time. The Krath are searching room by room. They will find us in minutes." Park tried to contact his Marines, but they were all fighting on other decks. There was no one to send. The Cubs were alone. "Una," Park said, "protect them. Do whatever you have to do." "I will, sir." "But, Commander, there is something you should know. The Cubs, they are not scared. They are ready." The communication cut off. On Deck 8, Lieutenant Una checked her weapon. She had only 12 shots. 6 Krath soldiers. Even if she hit every shot, some of them would reach the children. She turned to look at the Cubs. They were huddled together in a storage room. Grandmother Lyra was lying on the floor, unconscious. A piece of metal had hit her head when the ceiling collapsed. She was alive, but she could not walk. Sori knelt beside Grandmother Lyra, holding her paw. The other Cubs were silent. Their ears were flat. Their fur was standing up. They were terrified, but they were not crying. They were not running. "Lieutenant," Sori said quietly, "what do we do?" Una looked at the young Valari. In this moment, she saw something that made her proud. Sori was scared, but her voice was steady. She was not breaking down. She was asking for orders. "I will hold them off," Una said. "You take the Cubs and run. Use the maintenance shafts. They are too small for Krath soldiers to follow." "What about Grandmother?" "I will protect her." Sori shook her head. "No, we do not leave anyone behind. You taught us that." Una felt tears in her eyes. "Sori, please." "No." Sori stood up. She looked at the other Cubs. Formation. The word was quiet, but it hit the Cubs like a command. They stopped shaking. They stopped looking at the door. One by one, they stood up and formed 2 lines behind Sori. Taiho was the last to stand. He was shaking the most, but he took his place at the end of the line and stood at attention. "We will carry Grandmother," Sori said. "We will move together. We will use everything Commander Park taught us." She looked at Una. "You cover us. We will not leave you, and you will not leave us." Una stared at the 14-year-old cub who sounded like a general. Then she nodded. "Okay," she said. "Okay, let us go." They made a stretcher from storage blankets. 4 Cubs carried Grandmother Lyra. The others walked around them in a protective circle. Una led the way with her weapon ready. They moved through the corridors like ghosts. Sori had learned the station's layout during their weeks of training. She knew where the maintenance shafts were. She knew which corridors the craft were likely to use. "Left here," she whispered. Slowly, quietly. The cubs moved as one. Their feet made no sound. Their breathing was controlled. 6 weeks of training had taught them how to move together without thinking. They reached the first maintenance shaft. It was a small opening in the wall, barely big enough for a human child. Perfect for Velari cubs. "Taiho," Sori whispered. "You go first. Scout ahead. Signal if it is safe." Taiho's eyes went wide. He was the smallest. He was supposed to be the weakest. But Sori was trusting him with the most important job. "Yes, sir," he said. He did not even realize he had called her sir. Taiho crawled into the shaft. The darkness swallowed him. The others waited, holding their breath. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Then Taiho's small face appeared in the opening. "Clear," he said. "Come quickly." One by one, the cubs climbed into the shaft. Getting Grandmother Lyra through was hard, but they managed. Yuna went last. After making sure no craft were following, they crawled through the dark maintenance tunnels for what felt like hours. Taiho led the way, checking every turn before signaling the others to follow. The small cub who used to hide behind others was now leading them to safety. They were almost at Hangar Base 7 when they heard footsteps ahead. Everyone froze. Taiho crept forward and looked through a grate. His blood turned to ice. A craft soldier was standing right below them, guarding the entrance to the hangar. He crawled back to the group. "One guard," he whispered to Sori. "Big, armed. We cannot go past him." Sori closed her eyes. She thought about everything Commander Park had taught them. She thought about the motto they repeated every night: "No one left behind." "The emergency bulkhead," she whispered. "Section control is near here. If we can reach it and trigger the bulkhead, it will seal the corridor. The guard will be trapped on the other side." "But someone has to reach the control panel," Taiho said. "It is in the corridor. The guard will see them. Then we need a distraction." The cubs looked at each other. Then Taiho spoke. "I will do it." "Taiho, no. I am the smallest and the fastest. I can reach the panel before he catches me. You take the others to the hangar. I will seal the corridor and find another way." Sori wanted to argue, but she saw the look in Taiho's eyes. It was not fear. It was determination. "We will wait for you on the other side," she said firmly. "No matter what." Taiho nodded. Then he climbed out of the shaft. The craft guard turned and saw a tiny orange creature running across the corridor. He raised his weapon, but Taiho was fast. Faster than he had ever been. He reached the control panel, slammed his paw on the emergency button, and dove through the closing bulkhead door. The massive metal door slammed shut. The craft soldier was trapped on the other side. Taiho lay on the floor, breathing hard. The cubs surrounded him immediately. "You did it," Sori said. Her voice was shaking with relief. "You did it." "No one left behind," Taiho whispered. Then he smiled. Yuna led them to Hangar Base 7. She used her communicator to call for extraction. Then they waited. 20 minutes later, the door burst open. Commander Park ran in with a squad of Marines, ready for battle. He stopped. 12 Velari cubs stood in perfect formation, 2 lines of 6. Grandmother Lyra lay on a stretcher behind them, still unconscious, but breathing. Lieutenant Yuna stood to the side, her weapon still in her hand. Sori stepped forward and saluted. "Commander," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Cubs reporting. We have reached the evacuation point. No casualties. Repeat, no casualties." Commander Park stared at them. These children, these small furry creatures from a destroyed world, had crossed a station full of enemy soldiers. They had carried their wounded. They had worked together. They had not lost a single member. His eyes burned. His throat was tight. "Report received," he said. His voice was rough. "You did well, Cubs. You did very well." Behind him, the Marines looked at the small aliens with new respect. These were not just refugees anymore. These were survivors. He left the Cubs alone. Now they're parading like Tiro, Part 5, to Parade 3. Months had passed since the attack on Station Haniel 7. The Krath Raiders were defeated. The station was repaired. Life went back to normal for most people. But for the 12 Valari Cubs, nothing would ever be normal again. They were different now. They were stronger. Grandmother Lyra had recovered from her injury. She still walked slowly, but her eyes were no longer worried when she looked at the children. Instead, she felt pride. Deep, powerful pride. The story of how the Cubs escaped the Krath had spread across the galaxy. Military analysts studied their route through the station. They called it an exceptional display of tactical thinking and unit cohesion. News reports talked about the Cubs who refused to leave anyone behind. The Galactic Union decided to hold a ceremony. They would honor everyone who defended Station Haniel 7. The ceremony would be held on planet Taiwan Prime. At the Great Hall, where leaders from all species gathered, Commander Park received a message telling him to attend. He would receive a medal for his leadership during the battle. He did not want to go. He did not like ceremonies or medals. But orders were orders. He put on his best uniform and traveled to Taiwan Prime. The Great Hall was enormous, bigger than any building he had ever seen. Thousands of people filled the seats. Humans, Valari, and dozens of other species sat together, waiting for the ceremony to begin. Park sat in the front row with other commanders and admirals. He felt uncomfortable. His uniform was too tight. The lights were too bright. He wanted to go back to his station. The ceremony began with speeches. Leaders from different species talked about cooperation and peace and the importance of standing together. Park tried to listen, but his mind kept wandering. He thought about the Cubs. They had stayed on the station for another month after the attack, waiting for their transport to be fixed. But this time, the waiting was different. The Cubs were not scared anymore. They trained every day. They helped repair the station. They became part of the crew. When they finally left, Park had stood in the hangar and watched their ship fly away. He did not cry. He never cried. But his chest had felt empty for days afterward. The announcer's voice brought him back to the present. And now, the announcer said, "We have a special presentation." Park looked up. What special presentation? Nobody had told him about this. The great doors at the back of the hall opened slowly. For a moment, there was silence. Then Park heard something that made his heart stop. Footsteps. Small footsteps. Marching in perfect time, the Cubs walked through the doors in formation. 2 lines of 6, moving as one. Their small feet hit the ground at exactly the same moment. Left, right, left, right. They wore uniforms. Not Valari clothing, but real uniforms. Lieutenant Yuna had designed them. They were dark blue, like the Korean Space Force, but with silver buttons that looked like stars. On their shoulders, they wore 2 patches. One was the Korean Space Force symbol. The other was something new. A Valari symbol. A rising sun. The crowd gasped. Valari in the audience stood up. They had never seen their own people march like this. They had never seen Valari children move with such discipline, such purpose, such pride. The Cubs marched down the center of the Great Hall. Their eyes were forward. Their backs were straight. Their chins were up. Sori led them. Her gray fur was perfectly groomed. Her serious eyes looked at nothing but the path ahead. She was 15 now. She was not a scared child anymore. She was a leader. Behind her, Taiho marched with the others. The small orange cub had grown a little taller, but he was still the smallest. It did not matter. He marched like he was 10 feet tall. The cubs reached the front of the hall and stopped. They turned to face Commander Park. So, I stepped forward. She raised her paw and saluted. This time, her salute was perfect. Commander Park Do-hyun, she said. Her voice was clear and strong. It carried through the entire hall. The cubs of Haniel 7 report. The other cubs spoke together, their voices joining into one. We are no longer afraid. We are ready to protect others as you protected us. Park stood frozen. He could not move. He could not speak. Sori reached behind her and took something from Mai Ray, the youngest cub. It was a banner, carefully folded. Sori unfolded it and held it up. It was a painting. Handmade, with bright colors on simple cloth. It showed a tall figure with gray hair, standing with arms open. Around the figure were 12 smaller shapes, like small cats standing on 2 legs. They were arranged in a circle around the tall figure, facing outward. Protecting him. At the bottom of the banner, words were written in both Korean and Valari script. Our commander. Our teacher. Our family. Park felt something wet on his face. He reached up and touched his cheek. Tears. He was crying. He, Commander Park Do-hyun, who never cried, was crying in front of thousands of people. He did not care. He stepped forward and took the banner from Sori. His hands were shaking. You, he said. His voice was rough. You cubs, you taught me more than I ever taught you. Sori smiled. It was the first time Park had ever seen her really smile. We only learned what you showed us, she said. That being strong does not mean being violent. That being brave does not mean being alone. That no one gets left behind. Grandmother Lyra walked forward from the side of the hall. She moved slowly, but her back was straight. She stopped in front of Park and bowed deeply. Commander, she said, I was wrong to fear what you would teach them. You did not make them soldiers. You made them brave. You gave them something my people lost long ago. The will to stand up. The will to protect. The will to never run away. She looked at the cubs. Her eyes were full of love. My people have needed this for generations, she said. You have given us a gift we can never repay. Park looked at her, then at the cubs, then at the crowd. Thousands of faces looked back at him. Human faces. Valari faces. Faces of species he did not even know. I did not give them anything, he said slowly. I only helped them find what was already there. The strength was always in them. They just needed someone to show them how to use it. The ceremony ended with everyone standing. Humans and Valari and all the other species, side by side. The cubs did not walk out of the hall. They marched. Their feet hit the ground together. Their voices rose in a song that Lieutenant Yuna had taught them. It was an old human military song, but the cubs have learned new words for it. Valari words. Words about rising from ashes. Words about never giving up. The crowd watched them go. Many people were crying. Even the most hardened military officers had wet eyes. Commander Park stood alone at the front of the hall, holding the banner the cubs had made for him. He looked at it for a long time. Then he folded it carefully and placed it inside his uniform, next to his heart. 5 years later, the first Valari military academy opened on their rebuilt homeworld. It was a small building on a hill, overlooking the place where a great city had once stood. The city was being rebuilt, slowly but surely. Above the entrance of the academy, a phrase was carved in stone. It was written in both Valari script and Korean. No one left behind. The cubs, now grown, stood in front of the building. They were the academy's first instructors. Sori was the headmaster. Taiho led the physical training program. The others taught different subjects. from first aid to emergency response to leadership. Every morning, before the sun rose, the students gathered in the courtyard. They stood in formation, just like the Cubs had learned to do on Station Haniel 7. They recited the motto. They sang the song, and then they marched. The people of the rebuilt city would stop and watch. Old Villari, who remembered the destruction. Young Villari, who had been born after. They all watched the students march past, their feet moving as one, their voices strong and clear. Some of the old ones cried. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of hope, far away. On Station Haniel 7, Commander Park Dolyun sat in his office and watched a video message. It was from Sori. She sent one every month. "Commander," she said on the screen, "the academy is doing well. We have 50 students now. They are learning fast." She paused and smiled. "They remind me of us. Scared at first, but getting stronger every day." Park smiled. His hair was completely white now. His face had more lines, but his eyes were softer than they used to be. "Every morning," Sori continued, "we begin the day with a human tradition you taught us. Do you remember?" Park remembered. "A parade," Sori said. "Every single morning. We march together. We stand together. We remember what you taught us." The video ended with Sori saluting. Park sat in the silence of his office for a long time. Then he stood up and walked to his window. Outside, his Marines were drilling in the training yard, and in his mind, he saw 12 small cubs standing at a window, watching with wonder in their eyes. He had left them alone for only a few days. Now they were parading like troops, and he had never been prouder of anything in his entire life. The end.